It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's Tuesday, December 13th, and this is the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. We're on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So what is happening on this wonderful Tuesday? We've got current news from around the world, the practical word study, and of course we have Provi in the media. All right, everyone, how are you doing today? It is Tuesday, and I am so thankful Monday is finished, and I hope you guys are just enjoying this beginning of the weekend. Thankful for all of you joining us here on the Morning Star Drive to start your day. I hope that everyone just keeps liking and commenting. I want to hear from you guys, see how you're doing, but I think the most important point we always stress every day is let's build a community here on this platform, talking about the things that we couldn't talk about in other situations in our churches or our departments or whatever it is, but I hope we can have an open place right here. All right, so question answer Thursday is just around the corner too. I've already got a couple questions coming in, so make sure that you put in your questions. Would love to hear what you guys are thinking about or the questions that you have too, right? So, it looks like I am definitely going to Korea after my vacation with my parents. I'm starting to look into some tickets to see when I can get some cheap tickets over there. And, it's going to be right after my 3-week vacation with my parents. And there's one thing I'm worried about is I hope I don't get out of shape and get all pudgy and stuff. I need to look good when I go to Korea. And once again, I don't want to cause any attention to the reason why I'm going to Korea. Please don't ask why I'm going, why I need to look good, why I'm going in February. I'm just going to Korea because I want to go to Korea for some other reason that could be important or maybe not. Who knows? But yeah, I'm super excited to go. So, I don't want to say anything that might cause attention to something that shouldn't have attention. So I'm going to say don't ask. Either way. Oh, but this week I'm pretty excited because finally, some competition. I'm not saying that playing with church members is not competition, but an actual tournament coming up this Saturday. It's going to be a volleyball tournament and practicing and playing. I'm going to be practicing twice this week and then going to have the big tournament on Saturday. I think a team from Singapore is coming in too for that tournament, so I'm really, really excited about that. It's interesting because competition is such a powerful force. Right? And it puts you into a pressure situation where you're either going to do really well or you're going to flop or you're just going to completely collapse, right? But you got to think about this. It's the whole reason why we practice, right? One of the things I don't think is very good is if you just keep practicing and there's no real games. Real games doesn't mean you come to practice and you play a couple games with each other. No, I'm talking real games, real competition. There's trophies involved. There's you have the pride on the line against another team and you have the pride for yourself. And, if you think about this, if you don't have any real competition, then what's the point of practicing, right? So, when you actually play a real game in real competition, you compete against yourself. You see how good you really are compared to other people. It's the battle between you and the other team. Which team is better? It shows the reality of where you're at right now, how good your team really is. And I don't think it's any different than faith, right? Eventually, all the training we go through right now, every day in our life, it's leading towards a big battle we have against Satan and against ourselves, right? And, that's why, some seems like going, some even said in the past is, you're going through training for a reason. There's a battle you're going to fight against Satan. There's temptation you're going to go through. There's things that you're going to have to fight and battle with, right? And this is the whole reason for your training, right? The training is there, so when reality strikes, when that difficult time comes, it switches on in an automatic mode so you can fight it and go against it, right? And, you'll see even in real pure competition, there are some, when you look at the World Cup right now, there are some of those players that are awesome during practice, but they just can't do it during real games in front of the whole world as an audience. People just freeze in reality. They can't do the same as they did in practice. Their mind won't allow them to do it, right? And in faith also, I think the same thing happens. Sometimes we're only good in church situations, in church settings, but when the real setting, reality comes, when you're at work, when you're at school, when you're with your family, then a lot of times we begin to freeze, right? We don't know what to do. We freeze, and all that training that we did, whether it's learning the lessons or all the other different things that you went through to train yourselves for that moment, you freeze. And I think that's something that we have to really, really think about is don't just, when like sports too, don't just keep practicing. You got to get real competition. Like seriously real competition. Like competition when you look at, you're like going, oh, like that's what's going on. That's something that we really have to understand at a much, much higher level is, oh, all this training is leading to a practical and real situation, and your faith too. Praying in church, right? Sometimes people only pray in church, but they can't pray outside of church. Sometimes people are only righteous inside church, but when they're at school, they're yelling and screaming, their character comes out. Only, when they're at work, when they're with their families, the character just pops out. And it's like, wow, what is happening here? And the thing is, it has to be able to translate into the real world, or else it's not the training that you're doing is not very, very good training in the first place, right? And that's something I do think we have to think about and really work on too. So that's kind of the thoughts that I was really thinking about when I was thinking about, wow, we're gonna have real tournament this week. So we're gonna have a big training tonight. Then Thursday is gonna be like a practice game, and then Saturday is gonna be the big tournament. So I am seriously looking forward to that, right? Provi in the media, for today's Provi in the media, another article came out and is talking about Spain and how they treat the Jehovah's Witnesses. But you're going to look at the situation, you're going to see some super similar things to our case when it comes to Korea too. So I really want to talk about that one also. So we're going to see these similarities of like other churches being persecuted. And, basically they're considered a cult just like we are, right? So very, very interesting. I hope that you guys will enjoy that piece also. Spain and Jehovah's Witnesses. New poll just came out. This sounds very, very physical, but I think it's something that we have to think about in reality too, right? How much money you want to make to be comfortable? Like, what would you be comfortable with, right? And I don't really I only have 5 options, so I put only around 50,000 could be what? Anywhere from 30 to 75 or 25 to 75,000. I put around 100,000, which is like 75 to, anywhere above all the way up to like to 200,000. Then you have 250K, around 250 or around 500,000. Like these are all US dollars, right? So it's going to be quite interesting just to see what people's thoughts are. What would be a comfortable number for you guys, right? So like if you think about it, like 100,000 is basically like you're getting like $9,000 a month, right? Which you get 100K, right? But then, if you want to make 10K a month or you want 20K a month, like, these are things that people really, really think about a lot. And it's something that we have to go into reality, right? Not so much like when you're younger, you're like, no, I can live off 20,000. I just live in the church. And the answer is you could probably only do that when you're young. But when you're older and stuff, you're not going to be able to just live in the church making, like $1,000 a month and stuff like that. It's not going to work out that way. And, when you look at some of us out there too have families also. Can a family survive off a certain wage like that? And the answer is probably not, right? Especially if you have 2-3 kids. It takes a lot of money to raise children too. So that's one of the things I was taking a look at more physically. How much money would you be comfortable with, right? With your current situation, right? So if you're single, it's going to be different from someone who is who's married compared to someone who's got children and the ages of the children too. So that is something that I was thinking a lot about. So I hope that, guys, just be honest, write down the amount you think. And I put the last comment is comment what number you think you'd actually have. Like, you know what? None of these numbers really suit me. I want to be in the billions or whatever it is, right? Go ahead and write that there in the comments if you need to. All right. Espresso Sky, guys, there will be a video. I'm sorry. I didn't put one out last week. I put my mind up to it and I was like, and then I didn't do it, right? And I made excuses for it. So I can't make excuses for this week. Either way. All right, so let's get the show started with some music from member artists from around the world, all right? So it is an awesome and amazing Tuesday, and we're going to start off with the Sumney Boys from America, one of my favorite songs, Alone I Pray, and then we'll go to Kuma-chung from Japan with The Greatest Blessing 2022, and we'll end things off with that new song from Chunghae over there from Dia Wings in Korea with Dear My.
I pray all night, all I want is for your will be done. So I'm on my knees, praying for you to always come through. No, I'm not slipping through, no, I'm not falling down. The only thing that's falling's my knees on the floor. I'm praying, Lord, will you give me strength? Lord, will you give me power? I can't do this myself, so bless me in the morning hours. All the demons test me, but they will never shake me. If I pray, they hit me. If I pray, you love me. Connected with you's the only thing that matters. And honestly, I couldn't be happier while I'm praying on my knees. I trust you with all my heart, for you always come through. For myself, for my family, for myself alone I pray. Please don't let me down, Lord. I know I can trust you with all my heart. So I'm on my knees, praying for you to always come through. Even if I pray all night, all I want is for your will be done. So I'm on my knees, praying for you to always come through. I pray to never just settle for good when great is available. Who's the mastermind behind this mind? I give all the credit to God, that's why I'm back. They mad that I made it, I know that the Satans, they hate it. I keep working hard just to make progress. Now I'm on 10, trust the process, ayy. Look at my efforts lately, I'm setting conditions daily. I'm praying on my knees, so bless me. Please bless me, please bless me. Tribulations always come and go, I will never stop, just always know your focus determines reality, stay solid, that's why I'm praying on my knees. I trust you with all my heart, for you to always come through. For myself, for my family, on myself alone I pray. Please don't let me down, Lord. I know I can trust you with all my heart. So I'm on my knees, praying for you to always come through. Even if I pray all night, all I want is for your will be done. So I'm on my knees, praying for you to always come through. SB.
もう終わり令和の時代成長してから戦う時代うまくいかないうまくやれないことが多いけど決して諦めないあれから7年の月日が経ち巻いた種は少しずつ芽を出し今すべて捨てらいざらいあなたに告げて Be alright どんなに険しい道のりでも果てない壁に阻まれても It's fly away Fly away 天高く頂上目指す観難の波が押し寄せてもこんなに愛が溢れてるから立ち上がれ立ち上がれ一人じゃない With your love
最高の祝福得る時代愛そうこれからの未来に期待世界はまだまるで瞑想未来永劫したくない戦争この時代に訪れた平和最も大きな愛をくれたメシアただ確信してずっと愛そう感謝が溢れる死の栄光
どんなに険しい道のりでも果てない壁に阻まれても It's fly away Fly away 天高く頂上目指す観難の波が押し寄せてもこんなに愛が溢れてるから立ち上がれ立ち上がれ一人じゃないパワー主の愛とその恵み忘れないで御言葉を行って御言葉を通し全てに勝って主の軍隊となり黄金の城へ前進する主と共に溢れる祝福をくださった惜しみなくくださった主に感謝する永遠に主のそばで生きられる ない現実主を愛します最高の祝福をくださった心は天国です感謝します主と輝く歴史なそう私を使ってください愛してます愛してます
어디서부터 어디까지 생각해야 할지 이 작은 한 걸음조차 어디에 뛰들지 머리가 온통하해질 때 내 지난 길 돌아보면 그대라는 희망이 빛나요 시기와 음해로 얼룩진 말들에 내 진심이 베이지 않게 그대를 등불 삼아 난 나아가요 어려움도 아픔도 이 또한 지나가는 중인데 나를 주어진 길을 난 사랑하겠어요 진심을 가장한 이기심에 거친 참견들 적당히 듣는 척 흘리는 팁에 그대가 준 용기와 사랑이 내 믿음과 기적이 돼 힘내어 나아가요 지켜봐줘요 And keep in mind 묻어있던 걱정들은 털어내 흘러가는 시간과 섭리의 흐름에 맡겨 And keep it up 떠나질 우릴 위해 나아갈게요 There's all water under the bridge now The truth is diamonds 따띠라 따따디스타 따따띠라 따따라라리라 뚜뚜 따뚜 따따뚜 따라라리라 뚜뚜 따뚜 따따따 나를 주어진 길을 난 사랑하겠어요
And there it is. That is Chunghae from Diawings in Korea. That is her first solo song. I really, really enjoyed that jazzy style. Before that, The Greatest Blessing 2022. That's Kuma-chung from Japan. And of course, feature artist of the day, Somebody Boys from America with Alone I Pray. All right, so let's get into news going on around the world. And of course, as brides of this history, we need to be those that can pray for this world. But in order to pray for it, we need to know what is going on. So let's start off with man, this is crazy, guys. Another volcano erupts in the world. Tell me, guys, this is crazy, right? Fuego volcano erupts in Guatemala, forcing airport closure. So in Guatemala City, the volcano sits about 16 kilometers from Antigua, the country's picturesque former capital and biggest tourist attraction. Fuego erupts every 4 to 5 years on average. In 2018, an eruption sent rivers of lava pouring down its sides, devastating the village of San Miguel Los Lotes, killing 215 people and leaving a similar number missing. Authorities are monitoring the latest eruption closely, and so far no one has been evacuated, said Rodolfo Garcia, a civil protection spokesman. With what happened in 2018, now the authorities are already more alert and more active, said Jose Sul, another resident of Alotenanga. Locals saw a sudden explosion of lava Saturday night that reddened the sky, and people here are used to experiencing this, and they look at it as normal. And that's from Demetrio Pamal, a 28-year-old indigenous Mayan farmer. And many local families have a backpack ready with food, water, a flashlight, and medicine so they can evacuate for up to 3 days at the drop of a hat. Guatemala has 2 other active volcanoes, Santiaguito in the west of the country and Pacaya in the south. Fuego also adjoins the inactive Acatenango volcano at 3,500 meters. And unlike South America's Andean volcanoes, Guatemala's are not snow-capped because of Central America's warmer climate. Central America has more than 100 volcanoes, many of which are wildly popular tourist attractions, even though they occasionally cause death and destruction. So that is quite shocking. This is the second one this week, guys. It's already another volcanic reaction. What is this saying? What is going to happen? That all these tectonic plates are shifting and volcanoes are erupting. In second news, let's go to Italy. And there is this shocking shooting at a cafe. 3 women shot dead in Rome cafe. 3 women, including a friend of Italy's new prime minister, were killed when a man opened fire at a cafe in Rome, injuring 4 other people. Those inside were meeting as part of a local block's residents committee. Roberto Gualtieri, mayor of Rome, described the shooting as a grave episode of violence and said he would attend an emergency meeting on Monday. A suspect, 57 years old, is in custody. He has a history of disputes with some of the committee's board, report says. Luciana Ciorba, the committee's vice president, was at the cafe in the Fedine district, Italy's La Repubblica newspaper reports. She said the gunman had entered the bar on Sunday shouting, "I'll kill you all," before using his pistol. He was reportedly overpowered by other residents before being detained by police, and of those people injured, believed to be 2 women and 2 men, one remains in a serious condition. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni named one of the women killed as her friend Nicoletta Golisano. The other dead women were named as Elisabetta Silenzi and Sabina Sperandio. Ms. Maloney also said that a shooting range from which the suspect had allegedly stolen the gun used in the attack had been closed and was under investigation. And police are yet to comment on the motivation of the suspect, who has been named by the Italian press, but not officially. The attack is not thought to have been political, and reports suggest the suspect and the apartment block's board of residents have been locked in a bitter dispute for some time. Giorgia Meloni, leader of Italia's far-right Brothers of Italy party, became the country's first female prime minister in October. So that is quite interesting to see this violence erupting too in all places like Italy, right? Like having a shooting there is very, very, very rare. Last but not least, we'll go to Serbia. So Serbian leader holds security talks over Kosovo unrest. Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić has met his National Security Council as tensions rise in Kosovo between the authorities there and ethnic Serbs. On Saturday, a stun grenade was thrown at EU police in northern Kosovo, where Serbs form a majority, and local police exchanged fire with unknown groups. Ethnic Serbs set up roadblocks after Kosovan police were deployed in a dispute over car number plates. Serbia refuses to recognize Kosovo as an independent state, and Kosovo, which has an overwhelmingly ethnic Albanian majority, broke away from Serbia after a war in 98 and 99. NATO, which has peacekeeping troops in Kosovo, called on all parties to avoid provocations. The EU has done likewise, warning that it will not tolerate attacks on EU police or criminal acts. The latest unrest was triggered by the arrest of a Serb former police officer on Saturday. And speaking to Reuters news agency after meeting his National Security Council, Mr. Vučić said he wanted to defuse the situation. Kosovo Prime Minister Albin Kurti described the protesters as criminal gangs and asked the NATO-led peacekeeping Kosovo force to remove the barricades. Kosovo police said they had come under fire in different locations close to a lake bordering Serbia late on Saturday, with officers returning fire in self-defense. Kosovo deployed police to majority Serb areas which do not recognize the Kosovo government in the capital, Pristina, at the end of last week. This heightened tensions further after they were already raised for months over a row about vehicle license plates. Mr. Vučić said the use of police violated previous peace agreements, and he said he planned to ask NATO peacekeepers for permission to send Serbian police and troops to the area, though acknowledged there was little chance of this being granted. Kosovo declared independence in 2008 following the bloody year-long war a decade earlier, and Serbia does not recognize it as a sovereign state. However, does accept the governing authority under an agreement brokered in 2013 to normalize relations. Of the 1.8 million people living in Kosovo, 92% are Albanian and 6% are Serbian. The police officer arrested on Saturday was one of some 600 ethnic Serbs who resigned from the force in November in protest after authorities in Kosovo said they would require Serbs to swap Serbian license plates dating to before the war for Kosovan ones. Some 50,000 people in majority Serb areas have so far refused to use Kosovo number plates because they do not recognize its independence from Serbia. A deal brokered by the EU at the end of November saw an uneasy agreement reached between the two sides, with Kosovo dropping plans to fine people who do not swap the plates, and Serbia agreeing to stop issuing registrations with the initials of towns in Kosovo. So let's hope that this doesn't spiral into another massive fight or war that happens again too. That's something that we do not want to happen, all right? So that's the top 3 news around the world. Let's get into some sporting news, starting with the World Cup. And yes, the semifinals haven't started yet, but we have only 4 teams remaining, and I believe the games start tomorrow or tonight. This morning? Well, it depends on which side of the world you're on. But that first leg is going to be Croatia versus Argentina. And Croatia, there's something about that team. The longer the game goes on, the more they're into it. So Croatia, fantastic ability to stay in a game, and their midfield 3 of Modric, Kovacic, and Brozovic have the technical ability on the ball to control large spells, and when they have to defend, they are dogged and organized. Argentina, even with Lionel Messi, will find it very hard to break them down, and the longer the game stays even, Croatia will only grow in belief. So I think Argentina right now is the favorite right now, but who knows what's going to happen. I believe Croatia did go to the finals. Was it the last one or the one before that? So that's going to be quite interesting to see that matchup too. This one is the one that's more exciting for me, which is Morocco versus France. Morocco, Cinderella team, was never supposed to make it here. They beat Spain and Portugal, right? And now they're going to play. They're going to go against the defending champions, France. And France is way better than Spain and Portugal by far. You have Giroud, which is the old school center forward, always in the box. And then you have Mbappe, Dembele, have the pace, skills, and tricks to beat anyone one-on-one. And this is what Spain and Portugal didn't have. Right? Griezmann will play between the lines, while you can expect Hernandez to bomb forward from his left back position. So the French, they've been here before. They won the World Cup last time, they're used to playing these huge games. But the Moroccans, it's their first time, and the current world champions have experience and know-how in these kind of games, especially when the pressure is very, very high. But it's the power of the Cinderella team. They have absolute belief in themselves. First African nations team to make it to the semifinals. Let's see what happens in this. In Major League Baseball, it's the contract season, and there are massive spending sprees going on from the start of Monday to the end of Wednesday. So in 3 days, 20 Major League free agents have agreed to contracts totaling $1.6 billion, as crazy as that sounds, right? Like, if you look at some of these teams, of that $1.6 billion, the New York Mets have spent $461 million in future salaries, right? They just signed Kodai Senga, a Japanese pitcher, 5 years, $75 million. They also got another pitcher, Tejuan Walker, 4 years, $72 million. Jameson Talon, 4 years, $68 million. You have Justin Verlander signed, 2 years, $87 million. So it's pretty crazy. They're going all in on the Mets. They're going to be a better team for sure. San Diego Padres also just signed, I talked about this a little bit last week, was Xander Bogaerts from the Boston Red Sox, 11 years, $280 million in the free agent market. We also know that, you're also looking at $360 million paid to Aaron Judge over there by the Yankees, but it's crazy. $1.6 billion in 3 days, and for 20 players. 20 players, $1.6 billion. So that is crazy going on. Also for mixed martial arts, MMA, we had UFC 282 over the weekend and some crazy matchups. It was a light heavyweight fight, right? It was the big one. It was Jan Blachowicz versus Magomed Ankalaev, and guess what? Guess what happened? It was a split draw, which means no one won. So at the year 2022 is going to end without anyone holding the UFC light heavyweight belt. So that's kind of surprising. There's also Tupuria versus Mitchell, 2 undefeateds. And that was a very, very interesting fight too. But it was Topuria that comes up on top. He basically has all the skills. He's got grappling, he's got striking, he's got leg kicks. He's got everything there. So Topuria, he's remains undefeated. And of course, the big bad, the matchup of stars, it's Paddy Pimblett. He's really, really famous. He's someone that everyone likes, gets the job done, which is the most important thing. But when you watch what actually happened in the fight, It was a close match, and a lot of people even said that that Gordon actually won, right? So it may have been a defeat, but Gordon gave Pimblett a lot to think about coming out of this one. And from this, probably people are going to say that Pimblett is someone not ready for a championship fight. And wow, that should be quite interesting to see. So I'm looking forward to that, to see what's going to happen there. Paddy Pimblett's very, very famous because he's got a great character. He's kind of funny, like totally awkward looking and like normal. But he's, you know, in his past fights, just brutally beating people down. But in this fight, he wasn't the favorite. Well, he was the favorite, but he wasn't like it was a unanimous decision, but everyone watching the fight said, did he really win? So that's quite interesting to see too. Right? So there it is, guys. That's top 3 news in sports and the news from around the world. Hope you guys really enjoyed that. But now, you know what that means. It is the golden time. Yes, it is the golden time, a time of praise and worship to the Holy Trinity. Hope all of you guys are looking forward to giving glory to God and the Holy Spirit. So, what are we going to praise and worship today? Today, we're going to start with Secretly the Lord Has Come, an oldie but a goodie, and then another oldie, The Grace of Thanksgiving, one of my favorite, and of course, we'll end things off with Tremendous Grace. So, as one body of the Morning Star Drive, let's spend this time giving praise, honor, and glory to the Holy
Open up our eyes and to give thanks with every word we speak. We all sing praise to God, the one who made and formed our souls and spirits. We all give thanks through songs of praise. He has been the warm rays of the sun, and he has been the fresh air that we breathe. The Spirit's warm embrace and the sweet rain of grace sent down upon us. God raise our spirits with his love. I praise and thank you, Lord. I sing to you with love. My spirit's changed into a bride, so Lord be glorified. For me you're always there. My spirit's in your care. This stream of thanks and grace now overflows. I thank you, Jehovah, Lord of hosts. I thank you, Mother of my spirit. I thank you, Holy Son, Lord of love. I thank you, my Lord. I thank you, Jehovah, Lord of hosts. I thank you, Mother of my spirit. I thank you, Holy Son, Lord of love. I thank you, my Lord. Lord, you've helped us open up our eyes and to give thanks with every word we speak. We all sing praise to God, the one who made and formed our souls and spirits. We all give thanks through songs of praise. He has been the warm rays of the sun, and he has been the fresh air that we breathe. The Spirit's warm embrace and the sweet rain of grace sent down upon us. God raise our spirits with his love. I praise and thank you, Lord. I sing to you with love. My spirit's changed into a bride, so Lord be glorified. For me you're always there. My spirit's in your care. This stream of thanks and grace now overflows. I thank you, Jehovah, Lord of hosts. I thank you, Mother of my spirit. I thank you, Holy Son, Lord of love. I thank you, my Lord. Through you, Lord, I have a brand new life. Now I can live as your beloved bride. I'll only love you, Lord, for you have taught me about the life of heaven. My spirit will rejoice and sing. I praise and thank you, Lord. I sing to you with love. My spirit's changed into a bride, so Lord be glorified. For me you're always there, my spirit's in your care. The stream of thanks and grace no overflows. I praise and thank you, Lord. I sing to you with love. My spirit's changed into a bride, so Lord be glorified. For me you're always there, my spirit's in your care. The stream of thanks and grace now overflows. I praise and thank you, Lord. I sing to you with love. My spirit's changed into a bride, so Lord be glorified. For me you're always there, my spirit's in your care. The stream of thanks
And that was Tremendous Grace, another great song from Pastor Joan. Before that, The Grace of Thanksgiving, and of course, Secretly the Lord Has Come. And I think we haven't heard that song in a long time, all right? So now that our hearts are prepared and made ready through the time of praise and worship, let's get ourselves into today's word study, which is the practical word study. And looking into this week's message, I think there's really couple of options that we have to really make this week's word practical, and especially comes from the word at the very beginning is when you look at the disciples, when they came to Jesus, they didn't know about, why the Pharisees, Sadducees kept asking about where is Elijah, which means they didn't even know history. They didn't know the Bible really well, right? And this is something that I do think I want to give some suggestions of some lessons I think that would be great for you to review or learn again. Now, if we're going to learn history properly and clearly, I do suggest, of course, look at some websites, go search around. But when it comes to the lessons that we teach, I am such a huge advocate of the history lesson, which is the one that comes after time, times, and half a times. And sadly, it is not really taught that much because a lot of people are not, it's a lot of work to get into. Right? Even when I look at the notes, it makes no sense. Honestly, you look at the notes for the history lesson, you're like, whoa, what is this all saying, right? It doesn't really make any sense if you just read it itself. You got to get deep into it. And it tells you, it goes into kind of the larger history of the Old Testament, 2,000 years from Abraham. Well, you can go all the way from Adam, but it goes from Abraham all the way to Jesus, and it's very, very detailed. And then you compare it to the time of the New Testament from the time of the Roman persecution of early Christian churches and forward. So I think it's something everyone should go over. Understanding the history of the Old Testament and New Testament, how they compare with each other, how exact they are and alike, right? That's something that I find very, very powerful too. And for those of you guys who want to listen to that, someone's already asked me about this. On my Patreon, you're going to see a lecture training series on history, right? And training people how to teach at least the first part of that lesson. I do recommend you take a look at that one. It is on Patreon. Take a look at that one. It'll help you out when it comes to looking at the history of the Old Testament and such. So there's the first one I would definitely recommend because it has to do with time, right? Knowing the time really well. The second lesson I really recommend would be related missions of Jesus and John the Baptist, of how, because this week's message is of how God works through the body. And you're going to see how the spirit cannot come back in the body, so it has to use a body in the same spirit and power, shimjung and mission, and that's Elijah with John the Baptist, right? And that's understanding the history of Elijah and how he becomes John the Baptist, how he takes that same mission. This is something we do need to research and understand well, but we don't really need to go into other websites. We teach this lesson so powerfully and better than anywhere else I've seen, and that's why go ahead. Once again, if you're on Patreon, go ahead, check out the lesson I teach on related missions or the lecture training on related missions too. And basically, one of the things that is probably not talked about very well, but if you check out my times, and I don't know if I actually taught this in this, but some people also said you have to study really well to know the John the Baptist of our time period. So research, understand that well. And that's something we really need to know because even though they failed, it's something that we really need to know well. If we ever get into that same situation like the disciples who ask, well, where's Elijah of this time kind of thing, right? And if you learn related missions, times and a half, when I teach times and a half, sometimes I go all the way into that, right? And you're going to see, I'll go into the Unification Church and stuff like that too. So that is something that you could take a look at when it comes to, I'm not sure if I teach it in related missions lecture training or the times and a half of times. It's one of the two that I will teach that in. It could be in the history one too, but you'll learn more details of the John the Baptist that came, that kind of failed, that Sunseem talks about in this week's message, okay? So those are the two lessons I would definitely put in there that talks about the two different key points, okay? Another lesson, when it talks about God working through the body, definitely the Holy Son lesson. go over that lesson too. Yes, go into my Patreon on the website. You're going to find that there. The Holy Son lesson is something that you should go over. I would also look at stories in the Bible like Noah, Moses, Jonah, Jesus, and these are all like those 4 stories of God directly speaking to them and them going to the people and talking and then saving these people. Or you're going to understand the concept of God working through a body, right? And if there was a 4th lesson that I would recommend, we don't teach this anymore. I don't know if I have it on my Patreon. I think I do actually. I think I do have this one. It is the comparison of the ascent and advent of Elijah and Jesus, and it compares the two. I think that's a very, very good one. We don't really teach it that much. I do have it on my Patreon. You get a much deeper sense of God working through the body. So for me, I believe you can find all these. I'm not here just to promote my Patreon. I am promoting it right now because I have all these lessons on it. However, this is something that you can study on your own, right? Only reason I recommend Patreon is you don't have to go to your leader and say, hey, can you spend 2 hours with me and teach me about this lesson? Can you spend an hour with me on this lesson, where you can just find it on Patreon and study it yourself? And that's why I find it's a little bit easier. And like I said, it's worth it. It's only $3 a month, right? At the cheapest, right? So you can go ahead and ask your lecturers, your leaders to help you understand this lesson well, but it's something I do think you don't really, really need to. You can actually do it on your own. You can do it on the Patreon also too, but those are the 4 lessons. Like I said, start off with the history lesson. I think that's really powerful, and a lot of people don't learn that one. Go to related missions, the Holy Son lesson, and the comparing the ascent and advent of Elijah and Jesus. And those 4 lessons, I think if you learn those ones really, really well, you're going to get into that position where you're going to be very clear about history. And when you understand history very, very well, you're going to be able to compare them and say, this is what it means, and this is what it's saying over here too. All right? So that would be my main things for the practical word study. I know it's really, really short, but more than, if anything, I would just go out and start studying those lessons. Spend like maybe 30 minutes a day, go over 30 minutes of the video of one of them, or like focus on 1 or 2 of those lessons that you can do this week. But I do think those are very, very powerful. And I would definitely, it would be, history lesson is 100% I would do. That's the one for sure. And then either related missions, comparison of Elijah and Jesus, and Holy Son. Those 3, you might be able to just pick one of those. Right? One of those, and it might be good enough for that also. So those are the ones I do recommend, and I hope it's something that helps you guys out. But this is something where, in order for us to know history very clearly, we do really, really have to study ourselves. Like, I can start teaching it right now on my podcast, but that's not the point of this podcast. I'll have to do something completely different on this anyways, either way. Okay, so that's the practical word study. I hope it's something that helps you guys out, but this is going to be on you guys. You guys go out, find the videos, study them, and study them as much as you can. Okay? So that's the practical word study. A little bit short, but I hope it's something that helps you guys out to put these words into action, to know history even more clearly than before, which means we're going to get into the song of choice for today. And I was looking for a Japanese song. It's supposed to be a Japanese Tuesday, but I guess because Christmas is not a big thing for Japanese people, I can't find many really good Christmas songs. So I am going to revert back to a Korean song. Maybe for December, go back into Korean Christmas songs. But this is Roy Kim and Lee Moon-se. He's a rapper, right? And this is a song called This Christmas featuring Hanhae. And I hope you guys will really enjoy this on this Korean Tuesday.
Happy Christmas. Yo.
I really love you like this Christmas. I really love you this time. 꿈이라고 믿을 만큼 행복한 거야. 너와 함께 있는 이번 크리스마스. 눈이라도 내린다면 날아갈 거야. 너와 함께 저 별로 This Christmas. I really love you like this Christmas. I really love you this time.
Okay. 몇
몇 번의 봄 몇 번의 여름 옷깃 여미던가 그리고 다시 겨울 너와 함께 있어 널브러진 나의 삶이 정돈이 된 것 같아 수많은 내 맘의 빚을 언제 갚지 그리고 맞은 이 크리스마스 특별할 수밖에 지금 이 시간 너에게 담백하고 솔직하려고 해 나의 음악처럼 이 가사를 쓰며 두근대는 이 순간처럼
생일보다 더 좋은 건 오늘뿐이야 너와 함께 있는 This is Christmas 저 붉은 바다 해끝까지 다 주고 싶어 웃고 있는 너에게 This Christmas
내 입에서 행복하다는 말이 이렇게 쉽게 나올 줄이야 다시 말해 사람 입에서 행복하다는 말이 쉽게 나오는 것 절대 아니야 그러니 너도 그랬으면 해 아니 내가 너를 그렇게 만들면 돼 기적처럼 하늘에서 눈이 내려와 깊은 밤을 알아 궁전으로 데려가
꿈이라고 믿을 만큼 행복한 거야
오케이
생일보다 더 좋은 건 오늘뿐이야
눈이 와준다면 너를 안고 날아간 새야
형 진짜 돈인가 봐요.
Happy Christmas Thank you 로이킴 한해 저기 강동 아니야? 어디? 아 내가 대학 경찰 수동 교수
And there it is, This Christmas. That is Roy Kim and Lee Moon-se, and this song is called This Christmas, and it's also featuring Hanhae. I hope you guys really enjoyed that. Yes, we're getting into the Christmas spirit a little bit here and there, but I hope you guys really, really enjoyed it, all right? So let's move into the final segment for today on Provi in the media. And of course, we do go over other different religions and such too that are being persecuted in their countries. And the reason I go over these is because they go through a very, very similar timeline and format that we go through when we get persecuted also. And today I'm going to talk about the Jehovah's Witness. Okay, Jehovah's Witnesses in Spain, which I think is very, very quite interesting because Spain is a democratic country, right? It has an authoritarian past. We know that Jehovah's Witnesses were discriminated and persecuted under the Franco regime, as were most non-Catholic religious minorities. But mindful of this authoritarian past, to its credit, Spain now has a liberal enough legislation about minority religions. But Jehovah's Witnesses, for example, enjoyed the highest possible level of administrative recognition there. But what happened in May 18th in 2019, right? There's a Spanish Association of the Victims of the Jehovah's Witnesses, the AEVTJ, right? Association of the Victims of the Jehovah's Witnesses was founded in Toledo. And it was officially registered in the Register of Associations on October 11th, 2019. So this is very crazy, guys, because remember, we too have an association against us. Like we have a group that's like actively trying to go against us. And in Spain, they have an association for victims of Jehovah's Witnesses. Okay, so I'm gonna call them the AEVTJ. I'm just call them the AVTJs because it's a lot easier. AVTJ, right? So when you look at the AVTJ's bylaws, which read like a kind of it's like a pamphlet rather than a legal document, and its aim is to spread through all possible media a narrative persuading the Spanish public opinion that the Jehovah's Witnesses violate the Spanish and human rights laws, commit crimes, and their victims are led to isolation, depression, and even suicide. And those who escape just with mental illness and some other type of illnesses, but are still alive, may count themselves lucky. And this is what this AVTJ is proclaiming. So it sounds kind of similar, right? Like the things that they're accusing of crimes and stuff like that too. And of course, AVTJs, their claims are demonstrably false, right? So Gabriel Pedrero, one of the main AVTJ activists, launched on change.org a petition to have the Jehovah's Witnesses declared in Spain an extremist destructive cult, right? So the Spanish word used is secta, but it should be translated in English as cult rather than as sect, right? And he wrote there, let's sign so that this religious organization may be declared a cult extremist and destructive as it was in Russia, thus endorsing the persecution of the Jehovah's Witnesses in Russia and the Russian unique interpretation of the category extremism to liquidate peaceful religious minorities. The Russian crackdown on the Jehovah's Witnesses has been condemned by international organizations, but here's someone who's like saying that they agree with it, right? So Western governments and European Court of Human Rights all agreed against what Russia did to the Jehovah's Witnesses too. So let's move on to May 3rd, 2021. The Jehovah's Witnesses sued AVTJ for defamation, and AVTJ hired as a lawyer to defend them. The lawyer's name is Carlos Bardavio, who has been presented to the press as the most important cult expert in the world. Now, this in itself is remarkable since and who's the person writing this? Guess who it is? It's Massimo Introvigne, and he's been described in one of the official websites of the American Academy of Religion as one of the major names in the study of new religions in general, and had never heard of Bardavio before this case. And so did a dozen of international colleagues that Massimo consulted with, all leading international scholars of new religious movements. None of these people have heard of Bardavio. And when you look at this guy's Bardavio's Facebook page, it looks like an ambitious young lawyer and professor of law, understandably interested in promoting himself. While neither he nor Gabriel Pedrero of AVTJ qualify as scholars of religion, there is a field where they seem remarkably skilled. Russian-style agitprop and disinformation. Pedrero even let the cat out of the bag when he suggested that Spain should treat the Jehovah's Witnesses just as it does Russia, right? And adopt the Russian notion of religious extremism. Now, Bardavio's legal strategy is common enough in cases against religious minorities. He asks apostate ex-members to testify and answer leading questions on whether they felt abused when they were Jehovah's Witnesses and discriminate after they left and believe the Jehovah's Witnesses are a destructive cult. So does that sound familiar? Absolutely. What does Massimo say? The legal strategy, common enough in cases against religious minorities or cults, he asks apostates or ex-members to testify on whether they felt abused or whatnot, right? And one may only hope that the court will understand that apostates, a technical term indicating the minority of ex-members who became militant critics of the religion they have left, are not representative of ex-members in general and are generally not regarded by scholars as the most believable source about the groups they were once part of. Right? I'm going to repeat that again. What's an apostate? Apostate, right? And this is what he says. We're just hoping that the court's going to understand that apostates, a technical term indicating the minority of ex-members. So it's not just ex-members, a minority of ex-members who become militant critics of the religion they just left. And they are not representative of ex-members in general and are generally not regarded by scholars. So scholars don't even regard them as believable sources. So these apostates, ex-members, have clearly been socialized into the anti-cult movement, of which they use the jargon and even repeat common but false claims. And one is that the investigation on sexual abuse of minors by an Australian Royal Commission discovered that the Jehovah's Witnesses had shielded from secular justice 1,000 perpetrators of pedophile crimes in that country. This statement is false. Right? So then these people are saying that, oh my gosh, Jehovah's Witness in Australia, the government found out that Jehovah's Witnesses were shielding and protecting 1,000 perpetrators of pedophilia in Australia. And guess what? It's not even true. When you look at the evidence, it's not even true. That didn't even happen. But they are saying the same thing, right? As this AVTJ group. So and like if you look at an American scholar, Holly Folk, demonstrated in Bitter Winter, the Royal Commission's figure of 1,006 cases of suspected sexual abuse of minors reflects the sum of all disciplinary reports and referrals, proven and unproven, that have been submitted to the Jehovah's Witness organization in Australia over a 65-year period. So that's what the reality is, right? There was 1,006 cases suspected sexual abuse of minors, right? Which is a total of all disciplinary reports and referrals, proven and unproven, submitted to Jehovah's Witness over 65 years, 1,006, right? This data were supplied to the Royal Commission by the Jehovah's Witnesses themselves. The Jehovah's Witnesses had regarded 383 of the 1,006 allegations as serious enough to be reported to the police, and 161 had resulted in convictions, right? So if you think about it, there was 1,006 proven and unproven of these allegations that came to the Jehovah's Witnesses. They found that 383 were enough to be reported to the police, and even of the 383, only about less than half had resulted in convictions, right? So it's only 161 out of 1,006, which is like 10%. So the 10% out of 65 years. The Royal Commission's acquisition of all the remaining cases, which were put at the police's disposal, has not resulted in a wave of prosecutions, confirming that the judgment of the Jehovah's Witnesses had been sound enough. The Spanish apostates also omit to mention that while scholars have criticized the methodology of the Australian investigation, the Jehovah's Witnesses nonetheless fared better in terms of how they protected children than other religious organizations, including the Roman Catholic Church, right? So they're even better than Roman Catholic Church when they're vetting out these accusations and such. So here they are in Spain, referring to these 1,000 cases in Australia that they hid from the government. When you look at the reality, it's a lie. They actually gave all the information and evidence to the government, and they even reported the ones they thought were serious enough, and even of the ones that were serious enough, only less than half of them were actually convicted, right? So when you look at this, also when you look at what's happening in Spain, apart from the judges, Bardavio and Pedrero have effectively disseminated their narrative, including the famous but false story of 1,000 pedophiles allegedly protected by the organization in Australia, among dozens of Spanish media, most of which have not double-checked what they were told with the Jehovah's Witnesses. Only some of them have published the Jehovah's Witnesses' replies. Most articles only report the opinions of apostates and anti-cultists, such as the ex-Catholic priest Luis Santamaria del Rio. And this is a spectacular example of the media bias against religious organizations labeled as cults, right? Sounds very familiar to us too, where they will only show what the apostates of Providence say in their testimonies, but they won't talk about our rebuttals, and they won't talk about the things that are true. They're not looking for actual truth itself. Back to the article. Accusations against Jehovah's Witnesses are repeated uncritically, right? Without any awareness that they have been debunked by scholars and repudiated by courts of law, that the Jehovah's Witnesses protected pedophiles has been argued by the Belgian government anti-cult mission, which, however, has been found guilty of spreading fake news and defamation by a Belgian court of law, and that was in October 5th, 2021. So the only group in the EU that has still spread that was actually found guilty of spreading fake news by the government, right? Jehovah's Witnesses' practice of shunning those ex-members who have been disfellowshipped for serious sins or have formally left the organization as opposed to simply becoming inactive is described incorrectly in the Spanish case, including by omitting to specify that it's not applied to cohabitating relatives. Also, the Spanish anti-cult activists and media do not mention that the practice has been regarded as a legitimate expression of the Jehovah's Witnesses' freedom of religion by courts in several countries, including in Belgium, where a court of appeal has overturned a first-degree decision that had declared shunning illegal, right? So the Jehovah's Witnesses' practice of refusing blood transfusions for biblical reasons is described without considering the internationally recognized patients' rights to refuse medical treatments and the great variety of specific cases the specialized literature has examined, right? Even the dead horse of brainwashing, right? So we've heard this one even with us. A theory regarded as pseudoscientific by an overwhelmingly majority of scholars of new religious movements and by courts of law in the United States and elsewhere is being resurrected in Spain. Findings by scholars such as Rafaela de Mauricio that Jehovah's Witnesses appear as psychologically well-adjusted as their fellow citizens who do not belong to the religious organization are also ignored, right? Some people are saying they're fine. They're well-adjusted. They have no problems, but even that's being ignored. The end result, and the one the anti-cultists who operate according to a well-rehearsed international model wanted to achieve, is a reversal of truth and reality. The AVTJ, the defendant of the case and an organization that had spread fake news against the Jehovah's Witnesses, is presented as the victim, a small, brave group resisting a powerful international organization, and the Jehovah's Witnesses, the plaintiffs who seek justice against slander and defamation, find themselves put on trial, right? So think about that same situation is they look brave. People think they're brave for coming out and saying, oh, this is what actually happened, right? But it's now Jehovah's Witnesses who are like a lot of the things that these people are saying against them have been debunked, but now they're the ones looking like victims, and Jehovah's Witnesses, because they're a big organization, are seen as like the people really being put on trial. Now, some can object that religious and anti-religious controversies have a century-old tradition, and even exaggeration should be tolerated in the name of freedom of speech. Indeed, there is a subtle line between freedom of speech and slander and defamation. What AVTJ propagates is, however, hate speech, something that is not protected by free speech principles. I had hate speech in my portfolio when I served in 2011 at the OSCE, which is the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, representative for combating racism, xenophobia, and religious intolerance. And I know hate speech is difficult to define, and Spanish criminal law has its own classification for hate speech. But one of the tests to identify hate speech from an international law perspective is that it generates hostility and physical violence. And this is precisely what is happening in Spain. Since the AVTJ started operating, there have been more documented cases of vandalism against kingdom halls, right, which is a place of worship for Jehovah's Witnesses, than those anti-cult propaganda had already generated in previous years. The word secta, cult, has been spray painted on kingdom halls, and sheets of paper have been placed there with accusations of protecting pedophiles, mentioning the usual false Australian statistics and even of human sacrifice. Hate speech invariably generates hate crimes. Media that irresponsibly repeat and amplify slander without checking it are also not without guilt. What we are witnessing in Spain is a campaign of hate speech in the interests of religious liberty, human rights, and democracy. It should not be allowed to continue. So tell me when you listen to this story about Spain and like, of all churches, like Jehovah's Witness has been around so long, like you're not going to see anything against them in America. Like they're kind of normalized now. Pretty much they're normal. Really, they are in Canada and America. But when we look at that, it's like, I'm really shocked that Spain's doing this, but you have an organization that has been made to just go against that one church, like what we have in Korea province, where they're coming only against us. And I find that really, really shocking. And when you look at the MO, it's the exact same thing that's happening to us, whether it's sexual abuse, crimes. They're trying to paint the narrative against Providence. You have a small group of people. They're all apostates, right? People who have left and are really trying to come against us. And you look at this, and when you look at the majority of the massive scholars, they don't really take apostates as the general feeling of all ex-members. They don't look at them as credible. They don't look at brainwashing as a credible thing. And it's the exact same thing happening when it comes to Spain and the Jehovah's Witnesses. And I find that very, very shocking too. And it's something that we have to open our eyes to also, understanding that this is happening to other churches, not just us. It's other small minorities or groups that are considered sects or cults. And that is something that we have to look at very, very carefully and understand the same MO is happening to us right now, right? So I hope that's something that we can really, really understand at a much higher level too. All right. So there it is, guys. That is Provi in the Media. I hope it's something that helps you guys out to understand what is happening to us, and it's happening not just in Korea, but around the world too. And it's something that can help you guys to pray better about the situation also. All right. So there it is, guys. That is Provi in the Media. Hope you guys enjoyed that, which is the last segment for today's podcast. Everyone, have an amazing and awesome Tuesday, and let's see each other again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and feel your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm